Human warships are overpowered. The words crackled from Professor Zorlan's throat, his stunned revelation echoing through the lecture hall. The Arcturian cadets buzzed with disbelief, their long-held assumptions shattered. Ancient records unearthed from the depths of forgotten archives laid bare a shocking truth. In the early days of interstellar warfare, human vessels outclassed the mightiest ships of the galaxy's great powers. Yaris, a skeptical prodigy, resolved to expose this heretical notion as academic fantasy. He plunged into restricted databanks, hunting for the truth behind humanity's improbable advantage. The clues led him to whispers of a lost human colony, a mythical outpost swallowed by the void in a bygone age of relentless expansion wars. Driven by unyielding determination, Yaris rallied a misfit band of fellow cadets to pierce the veil of secrecy. Defying orders and risking everything, they plotted a daring, unsanctioned mission into uncharted space. Guided by little more than faded stellar maps and the cryptic etchings of a madman's journal, they sought the legendary coordinates of the vanished bastion. Amidst the bones of a shattered world, the impossible took form before their disbelieving eyes. Crumbling towers of steel and ceramic stood as silent sentinels, entombing the remnants of a human colony long forgotten by the cosmos. In the desolation, a tale of desperate survival and unhinged genius began to unfold. The lost colonists, abandoned and besieged, had stared into the abyss of extinction and refused to blink. Fueled by desperation, they had done the unthinkable, shattering the limits of Arcturian science to forge technological miracles. And the most terrifying of those breakthroughs now lay in the trembling hands of Yaris and his crew, the schematics for human warships of impossible power, dredged from the tomb of a shunned history. In the bowels of the Arcturian Space Academy, Yaris and his team toiled in secrecy, their illicit mission hanging over them like a sword of Damocles. The weight of their discoveries pressed down on their shoulders as they pored over the enigmatic schematics, trying to decipher the arcane principles behind humanity's impossible technologies. Yaris stared bleary-eyed at the holograms floating before him, the ghostly outlines of human propulsion systems taunting him with their stubborn refusal to yield their secrets. He hit his fist on the workbench, frustration boiling over. "This is madness," he growled. "We're getting nowhere." Across the lab, Walter Hunter looked up from the weapon diagrams, his brow furrowed. "I've hit nothing but dead ends," he admitted. "Every simulation ends in catastrophic failure. It's like we're missing some fundamental piece of the puzzle." As the team grappled with the mounting obstacles, a spark of brilliance cut through the gloom. Zara, her eyes alight with sudden insight, leapt to her feet. "What if we're approaching this all wrong?" she exclaimed. "We've been trying to understand these designs through our own paradigms. But what if the key lies in thinking like the humans did?" Her words ignited a frenzy of activity as the team threw themselves into their work with renewed vigor. Slowly, painfully, they began to make headway, the veil of mystery parting inch by painstaking inch. But their progress did not go unnoticed. Professor Zorlan, his suspicions mounting, cornered Yaris and his team in their hidden sanctuary. "Explain yourselves," he demanded, his voice tight with controlled anger. Yaris met Zorlan's gaze unflinchingly. "We found the lost human colony," he said, his words falling like hammer blows, "and we discovered the truth behind their warship's superiority." Zorlan reeled as the implications sank in. After a long, tense moment, he nodded grimly. "Show me everything," he said, "and pray that we can keep this under wraps." As Zorlan joined their clandestine effort, whispers of an ancient weapon with the power to reshape the galaxy's destiny spread through the academy like wildfire. The air crackled with tension as speculation ran rampant, and the team worked with a newfound urgency, racing against the clock and the looming specter of discovery. Zara, her bond with Walter growing stronger with each passing day, voiced the fears that haunted them all. "They'll come for us," she whispered, her eyes haunted. "The authorities won't let this knowledge slip through their grasp." Walter, grappling with his own demons, unearthed a chilling warning in the depths of the human archives. The cost of wielding this technology, he realized with mounting dread, could be higher than any of them had ever imagined. But before they could grapple with the full weight of their discoveries, disaster struck. Krell, once a trusted comrade, emerged as a traitor in their midst, his betrayal a knife to the heart of their endeavor. Chaos erupted as elite soldiers stormed their sanctuary, tearing through their defenses seamlessly. In the mad scramble, Walter vanished, leaving Yaris and Zara reeling in the face of an uncertain future. As the dust settled, Yaris stood amidst the wreckage of his shattered dreams, a cold, implacable fury rising in his chest. He would find the truth, he vowed, no matter the consequences, even if it meant tearing down the very foundations of the world he had once called home. The acrid stench of smoldering circuitry filled Yaris's nostrils as he stumbled through the wreckage of their sanctuary. Zara's panicked voice echoed in his ears, but Walter was nowhere to be seen. The betrayal cut deep, leaving a hollow ache in his chest. "We have to move," Zara hissed, tugging at his arm. "They'll be back any second." Yaris nodded, his mind racing. With a final glance at the ruins of their dreams, they slipped into the shadows of the Academy's lower levels. Days blurred together as Yaris and Zara evaded capture, surviving on stolen rations and snatched moments of rest. But the net was tightening. They needed an escape route off-world. "I know a place," Zara whispered one night, her eyes darting nervously. "It's risky, but it might be our only shot." The seedy underbelly of Arcturus Prime sprawled before them, a maze of neon-lit alleys and shadowy figures. Yaris's skin crawled as they navigated the unfamiliar terrain, every instinct screaming danger. They found themselves in a dingy bar, the air thick with smoke and the low murmur of illicit dealings. Yaris's gaze was drawn to a grizzled figure hunched over the bar, his weathered features unmistakably human. "Saul Graves," Zara ventured cautiously. The man's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "Who's asking?" "We need your help," Yaris said, voice low. "It's about the lost human colony." Saul's expression hardened. He gestured to a secluded booth. "Talk." As Yaris recounted their discoveries, Saul's face grew increasingly grim. When Yaris finished, the mercenary leaned back, a haunted look in his eyes. "Kid, you've stumbled into something far bigger than you realize," Saul growled. "That technology, it's not just advanced, it's a curse." He spoke of the expansion wars, of desperate colonists facing annihilation at the hands of the Krithari, of an alien artifact that promised salvation but delivered damnation. "The more we used it, the more it used us," Saul said, his voice hoarse. "It was alive, kid, hungry, and now your Professor Zorlon's got his hands on it." Yaris felt the blood drain from his face. "Zorlon? But he was helping us." Saul's laugh was bitter. Helping himself, more like. He's been obsessed with that artifact for decades. Thinks it'll put the Arcturians on top. "We have to stop him," Yaris said, his palms sweating. Saul nodded grimly. "Damn right we do, and I think I know where to start." The Arcturian research facility loomed before them, a fortress of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. Yaris's heart pounded as they crept through the shadows, following Saul's lead. "There," Saul whispered, pointing to a figure hunched over a workstation. "That's your boy Walter." Yaris's breath caught in his throat. Walter looked haggard, his eyes sunken and haunted, as he worked feverishly on a swirling mass of data. The rescue was a blur of alarms and gunfire. Yaris half-dragged Walter through twisting corridors, Saul covering their retreat with precise bursts of plasma fire. They were almost clear when a familiar voice rang out. "Yaris!" Professor Zorlon stood before them, his eyes wild with triumph. "You don't understand what you're doing!" Before Yaris could respond, a surge of otherworldly energy erupted from the heart of the facility. Reality seemed to warp and twist, the very air screaming in protest. "Go!" Saul roared, shoving them towards an experimental ship docked nearby. "I'll hold them off!" Yaris hesitated, but Walter pulled him forward. They sprinted for the ship, the sounds of battle fading behind them. As the stolen vessel rocketed into orbit, Yaris allowed himself a moment of relief, but it was short-lived. A massive Arcturian battle fleet materialized before them, weapons primed and hungry for blood. "Zorlon," Walter whispered, his voice trembling. As the enemy closed in, Yaris gripped the controls, his mind racing. The human technology at his fingertips hummed with lethal potential, but using it felt like dancing on the edge of an abyss. The comm crackled to life, Zorlon's voice filled with terrible purpose. Surrender now, and I may yet show mercy. Yaris exchanged a look with Walter. There was only one path forward, and it led straight through the heart of the Arcturian armada. With a deep breath, Yaris engaged the experimental drive. The stars blurred around them as they plunged into the teeth of the enemy fleet, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. The stolen vessel bucked and shuddered as Yaris pushed it beyond its limits. Alarms blared, warning of critical system failures. Walter's fingers danced across holographic displays, desperately rerouting power and patching together failing subsystems. "We can't keep this up!" Walter shouted over the cacophony of groaning metal and sparking circuitry. "The drive's going to tear itself apart." Yaris gritted his teeth, his eyes locked on the swirling vortex of hyperspace before them. The pursuing Arcturian fleet had fallen behind, but at a terrible cost. "We need to drop out, now!" With a violent lurch, the ship tore free of faster-than-light travel. They found themselves in an unfamiliar star system, a desolate moon looming large in the view screen. "There," Yaris said, fighting the unresponsive controls. "It's our only shot." The landing was more of a controlled crash. They skidded across the barren surface, leaving a trail of debris in their wake. When the ship finally ground to a halt, an eerie silence descended. Yaris and Walter stumbled out onto the alien landscape, the acrid stench of burning electronics following them. They surveyed the damage in grim silence. "Think we can get her flying again?" Walter asked, his voice hoarse. Before Yaris could answer, a burst of static erupted from the ship's communications array. A frantic voice cut through the interference. Repeat, this is an emergency broadcast from Arcturian Imperial Command. All available forces are ordered to mobilize immediately. Professor Zorlon has staged a coup." Yaris and Walter exchanged shocked glances as the transmission continued, detailing the horrors unfolding across the galaxy. The artifact's corrupting influence, Zorlon's madness, entire worlds falling under his thrall. "By the void," Walter whispered, "what have we done?" Yaris's mind raced. He thought of the schematics stored in the ship's databanks, the fruit of their forbidden research, the very technology that had allowed them to escape Zorlon's grasp. "We have to do something," Yaris said, his voice firm. "We can't just hide out here while the galaxy burns." Walter's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. We're fugitives, remember? They'll shoot us on sight." Yaris strode back into the ship, his fingers flying across the command console. "Maybe, but we might be the only ones who can stop this." With a deep breath, he initiated a wideband transmission. The human designs, carefully guarded for so long, streamed out into the cosmos. Within hours, the first responses trickled in. Confusion, outrage, but also hope. A message from Zara cut through the noise. "Yaris, you magnificent fool. You've just turned the entire galaxy on its head. But I think I have a plan. Meet me at these coordinates. And watch your back. You've made some powerful enemies today." As if to punctuate her warning, the ship's sensors shrieked. A squad of sleek attack craft dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charging. "Looks like our ride's here," Yaris said grimly, racing to the controls. "Let's hope these old human designs have a few more tricks up their sleeves." The damaged ship groaned in protest as it lifted off, scattering moon dust in its wake. As they rocketed towards the upper atmosphere, Yaris allowed himself a grim smile. The real war was just beginning. The damaged ship screamed through the void, pursued by sleek attack craft. Yaris's hands flew over the controls, coaxing every ounce of power from the failing systems. Walter braced himself against the bulkhead, eyes locked on the tactical display. "We're not going to make it to Zara's coordinates," Walter shouted over the alarms. "Not in one piece, anyway." Yaris gritted his teeth. "We don't have to. We just need to stay alive long enough to—" A burst of weapons fire rocked the ship, sending sparks cascading from ruptured conduits. The pursuing craft closed in, ready to deliver the killing blow. Suddenly, space itself seemed to ripple. A motley fleet of ships materialized around them. A hodgepodge of designs, some clearly human in origin, others bizarre hybrids of alien technology. "This is Commander Zara," a familiar voice crackled over the comm. "Looks like you boys could use a hand." Relief washed over Yaris as their battered vessel limped into the protective embrace of the rebel fleet. But there was no time for reunions. The galaxy was burning. Zorlan's corrupted forces spread like a cancer, devouring world after world. The artifact's power twisted Arcturian ships into nightmarish abominations of flesh and metal. Each victory only made the enemy stronger, assimilating the fallen into its ranks. Yaris found himself thrust into the role of rebel leader, coordinating strikes against Zorlan's ever-expanding empire. The human-derived technology gave them an edge, but it wasn't enough, not against the raw power of the artifact. Months passed in a blur of desperate battles and narrow escapes, but at last they had a plan, a chance to cut the heart out of Zorlan's twisted regime. The fortress world loomed before them, a hellscape of twisting spires and pulsing organic matter. Yaris stood on the bridge of their flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching armada. "This is it," he said, meeting the eyes of his assembled officers. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment." Walter nodded grimly. "My team is ready. We'll find that nexus and shut it down." Zara squeezed Yaris's hand. "Just get us close enough. We'll do the rest." The order was given. Across the fleet, engines flared to life. The rebel armada surged forward, smashing into the outer defenses of Zorlan's stronghold. Space itself seemed to scream as human ingenuity clashed with the unknowable power of the artifact. Yaris barked orders, guiding their forces through the chaos. All around them, ships erupted in silent explosions. They fought their way through wave after wave of monstrous defenders. Tentacles of living metal lashed out, trying to ensnare their vessels. Beams of corrupting energy sliced through hulls, twisting crews into shrieking abominations. At last, they punched through. Walter's strike team deployed, racing towards the surface in assault shuttles. Yaris watched them go, his heart in his throat. "Bring us around," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on their command nexus." The rebel fleet poured everything they had into the assault. But for every blow they struck, Zorlan's forces seemed to grow stronger. The artifact's power was beyond imagining. A sudden explosion rocked the flagship. Yaris stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. He looked up to see Zara impaled by a jagged piece of shrapnel, blood blossoming across her uniform. Time seemed to slow. Yaris moved to help her, but she waved him off. "Finish it," she gasped. "Don't let this be for nothing." Tears stung Yaris's eyes as he turned back to the battle. He couldn't save her, but he could make her sacrifice mean something. On the surface, Walter fought his way through nightmarish corridors. The walls pulsed with alien life, reaching out to ensnare the strike team. They pressed on, cutting down wave after wave of twisted defenders. At last, they reached the heart of the fortress. Walter stepped into a cavernous chamber, the air thick with crackling energy. And there, at the center of it all, stood what remained of Professor Zorlan. The thing that had once been his mentor turned to face him, its form a grotesque fusion of man and machine. Tendrils of living metal writhed from its body, connecting it to the pulsing artifact behind it. "Walter!" it rasped, its voice a horrifying chorus. "You've come home at last." Walter raised his weapon. "I've come to end this, Professor, to fix our mistake." The abomination that was Zorlan laughed, the sound sending chills down Walter's spine. "Fix? You understand nothing? This is ascension. This is destiny." With a roar of defiance, Walter charged forward. The hope of the universe hung in the balance as human drive clashed with the cosmic horror of the artifact's power.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.